Welcome to the Disney Parks Podcast with your hosts, Tony Caselnova from DisneyByTheNumbers.com and Parkhopper John from WDWParkhoppers.com. Keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast at all times. And get ready for the Disney Parks Podcast.
Have you ever come to Orlando and you're the person that has to make all the dining plans, all the fast passes, get all the tickets? Well, we have a service that can help you do this. This is the best service. They are themeparkconcierge.com. You can call them up at 407-257-9973. Tell them your plans. They'll send you a little profile, get some information about you and your traveling party, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And then they can set up a custom plan for you. And they'll take you around the parks. They'll make the dining plans. They'll get the fast passes. They'll take you to Walt Disney World. They'll take you to Universal. They'll take you to Busch Gardens, to SeaWorld, to Legoland, to all of those places, and they will do all of the work for you. Contact them at themeparkconcierge.com. Check them out on Facebook at facebook.com/Ramon VIP Concierge, or email them at ramon@themeparkconcierge.com. I am telling you, you will not be disappointed. And if you tell them the Disney Parks Podcast sent you, you'll get 10% off your order.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Disney Parks Podcast. We have a fascinating show for you tonight. And there's a lot of people who are Disney fans. They love the parks. They love meeting the characters and all that. We're in that group too. But there's another level of fans who love to get into the history of Disney. They read Disney books. They learn about Walt and Roy and how the parks were created. And we're definitely in that boat. And then there's another level of fans who like to know all about how the parks were thought out and imagineered, and even the parks, the attractions, the things that went unbuilt. And my friends, we have an author with us tonight who is firmly in that group of people. I'm so excited. I loved his book. It's called Disney UnBuilt. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome author Chris Ware.
Hello. Thanks for having me today.
Great. Thanks for coming on. So I always like to start with, Chris, how did your Disney journey begin? When did you become a fan, or when did you realize, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm addicted to this stuff?
Yeah, that was like, honestly, I'm one of those Disney families. Like, I've always had it. So I couldn't give you like this was the time, because it's, I was growing up with it. My first movie was Song of the South, which was pretty lucky because it was the last time they had it in the theaters.
Right.
And I lived about 15 minutes from Disneyland as a kid. So we had passes. We'd go. I mean, I consider it like literally my second home. I feel like I know it like the back of my head. I've said, if you just put me in the park, tell me like I could probably tell me where I am, and I'll probably go to Pirates and have me like blindfolded. I'd be able to do it, Right. I feel like I know the park that well. Yeah. So it's just been like my entire life. I don't remember Disney not being a part of my life in some way.
Did you? I assume that you went to Disneyland as a kid. Yeah. So do you remember the first time you went to Disneyland?
That's another one. Like, no, I'd have no idea. I think I was probably around 3, because I think that's about the point my family typically would have you start going. Right. We didn't I was the fourth of 5 kids, so I only had one other sibling that I know but I had a lot of nieces and nephews, and I think actually some of them, because we had passes, we'd like take them in whatever. But it's just, with kids, it can be hard when they're really little. Right. In fact, we had this little. Oh, a leash. We had this leash thing that we had for years. Every kid had to wear this little vestish thing with and everyone used to love it and ask my parents, where'd you get that? We want one of those. And I do remember having that on as a child. So I must have been young enough that they could use that. Right. So, yeah, it's hard to really say. I do know there's some memories I have that I can date, like, oh, I remember, this attraction and it closed by this date. So, I probably at least by 3, I do remember parts of the park at that point. Beyond, and I'm sure, more memories and more detail the older I got. Yeah, so the first time I'd have no idea. I don't even know if my parents would know. They're like, I don't know. We just went all the time,
I guess if you lived, I assume maybe that you live close to.
Yeah, we were like 15 minutes away. My family had actually lived in Anaheim for a while, and I was born in Anaheim, but I lived in Diamond Bar, which is just like 15 minutes away. It was a nice childhood. I always tell people, I had a pretty good childhood. I got to go to the beach when I wanted, or my dad would come home from work sometimes and be like, is your homework done? And we'd be like, yeah. Be like, okay, let's go to Disneyland. You can't complain about that,
No, you can't.
Right.
No, you can't. Well, Chris, tell us a little bit about, or as much as you want, I guess I should say, tell us about Disney UnBuilt.
Okay. Yeah, well, it was just an idea. I think it's one of the areas, it's such an interesting idea of like what could have been. And I think there are even some of the stuff that's in there. I remember when I was hearing about it, like I remember the Disney America. I remember hearing about it like, oh, sounds really cool. Or Westcott. I definitely remember hearing about Westcott, because again, I was down there and they did have, I think in the book it mentions like they did some little paper thing and they were giving stuff, they're trying to put stuff locally in the paper that was talking about it. So I even remember some of this stuff like, oh, it was coming out and then it never comes out. And you're like, obviously in the book, you kind of see that some stuff got pretty far, at the point that they're telling the press, oh, this is coming out. And then for various reasons, it doesn't. I mean, again, I was even from a young age, I remember these kind of like ideas that, oh, that's so cool. I can't wait to hear about it. And I think, again, being in that, milieu, there was a lot of other Disney people. You knew a lot of people who worked for Disney. So you even heard rumors. Like some of these ideas I probably heard about that didn't happen. Like I probably heard about them as a kid somewhere. Like I knew people who knew Imagineers or whatever. I might have heard some of these stories. And I love the concept art. Like at the above Pirates of the Caribbean, they used to have that art. I can't think of the name, but that place. That was actually, I loved going there as a kid. I think one thing, it had no line. So you just, it's a terrible day. Like I said, that passes. So some days we just go in the park and we didn't even care if we like went on a ride. Maybe we just go get a Dole Whip or I used to love the fritters in New Orleans Square. Had these great, they don't make the same ones anymore. It's really sad, but just to get foods, we knew what days certain candies were made at the candy store. So my mom liked to go that day to get that candy. Right. So it would be like, if that was the case, like I'd be like, oh, I want to go see the art. So I loved going in, and I remember a particular one, like I remember the Indiana Jones when they had the concept art for that, or the Disneyland Paris. I remember they had a model in there of the Phantom Manor that I just thought was so, I love the models and stuff. I love seeing that. So, even before I really kind of understood everything, like I just like, ooh, pictures and, oh, this is cool. And I knew that it was like ideas that maybe weren't going to, be built. It was a cool idea to me. So I started kind of working on the book a little bit, and then I never really finished it. And I'd read a couple of the books through the theme park press, and I was reading one and it mentioned it. Like it mentioned in the book, like, oh, if you have an idea or whatever, look at us up, or I think I saw the website, and I went to the website and I saw the thing about if you have an idea. And so I just like, why not? Let's send it. This is my idea. I like this idea as a book. I think it'd be a great book. It's definitely I have a lot of other book ideas, but that was the one I thought was the best, the most interesting to me, was the what could have beens kind of ish thing. Right. So I kind of threw that out there, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. So I'm like, all right. So then I kind of took what I had and I just went with it and took what I already had and finished up the book. And, it's just, it's something like I said, I really like. I love to think of what could have happened, like what could have been. I'm sure you guys read it. There is this, it's kind of funny, like the Paris stuff. You're like, oh, I hate you, Paris. Why did you ruin it? Why did it ruin everything? So there's all these like, what if this would have changed, or this little thing would have been different, And then of course, there's some things that, like I love the Black Hole or Tron, or there are a lot of things that they almost, if it would have been popular at the theaters, it would have been made, but it didn't do as well. And it's like, why didn't it do well? I love Black Hole. I love Tron. Why didn't everyone else?
Yeah. I know, right?
And it's interesting, too, to me. You might have noticed, like, there's a lot of ideas that they had those. It's really amazing to see how Disney had concepts that might have lasted 20, 30 years, and they were still kind of ahead of their time. Like, again, I think there was the idea for Buzz Lightyear was out there back into the 70s, the idea of some kind of a shooting game. Like, I think they had a version of that with the black hole being an example. And it's like, it's amazing to see how far ahead, like how forward thinking, or definitely Star Tours, like the whole concept of that kind of a ride, not just the black hole had a concept for that, but the Nautilus 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea type they're going to do at Discovery Bay. You know, they keep their stuff, and eventually it could get built. You know, that's something I mention a lot in my book. Like, well, you never know. This is something that could come back, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even, you know, if you watch, like, the making of Frozen, after that movie came out, you know, they had that idea a long, long time ago. And
just
kind of threw it in the shelf. Yeah, the Ice Princess. You know, kind of threw it in a drawer, and then, you know, they said, hey, wait a minute. I think we have something like that we've done before. And somebody goes to the archives and pulls out, you know, Plan B. So I think at Disney,
keep their stuff.
Yeah, I think at Disney nothing ever, you know, dies or is thrown away. It's just put on the back burner until some other time when it's viable, or, you know, the market changes, or a new CEO comes, or whatever, you know, whatever happens at Disney to bring the old back out again. So you just never know. So where did you know, there's when I was writing my book, a lot of research goes into, well, maybe mine was different, but I did a lot of research, and I kind of wanted to, you know, validate as much as I could to make sure I'm not writing that, you know, rumors or folklore or something. So, so where did you kind of go? And I mean, I don't want to give us trade secrets, but
it was a lot of different sources, and I kind of had the same. There were a lot of other things I could have written that, again, kind of like you were saying, I didn't want to give rumors. Some of them, obviously, I kind of mention in the book if it's like, well, there's kind of this rumor and there's not a lot of info. In some cases, it was like there is concept art, but no one really knows about too much detail about it, you know? I mean, if there's at least something, and maybe even Disney released it, and there have been some of those things. I think some of them, there's like a few different silly little vehicles that are just like the snail ride vehicle. Like, who knows what that's about or from? But Disney actually had released some stuff that, there's like some postcards, and we know that's from Disney. So obviously, like if it was like something like that, it came out, we don't know much info, but we do know it's Disney. Or in some cases, there's just so much, like there was so much talk, and there's some legitimacy to, like, I don't know. But I would say in the book, I kind of mentioned, I don't know if this is legit, but this is kind of the rumor that's been going on. You know, I mean, I'm sure if you're in just forums or any Disney stuff, or maybe on podcasts like this or anywhere, you're going to hear some of the, you know, stories that keep kind of getting repeated over and over. And I just felt like they almost have a life of their own. So even if they're not true, I wanted to at least the kind of caveat emptor. I would say, hey, it's a rumor. And again, like some of the time, you know, I do mention, oh, hey, there was some press release stuff they did, or, you know, in some cases, or, you know, a local paper covered. I think like the Sydney Harbor was being covered by one of the local papers. And I think I took from the actual site from their, you know, I think they had the actual, you know, news reporting from that, you know, from Sydney. I think I mentioned that, like, oh, this is what they said in the book. Hopefully I mentioned who said it. But you know, a lot of books, a lot of the, you know, I have a ton of Disney books, you know, and there's a lot of stuff out there, because there's definitely a lot online. I will say, like, you know, I think someone asked me, like, oh, hey, couldn't you just find this online? And another part of that is, to be fair, I wish I could. There's so much concept art out there online. Like, if you just Google, and, you know, just for copyright issues, you know, we couldn't do it. I wish we could. You know, it would be so much like, oh, there's some great art out there, and I think it'd be such a great book. I mean, Disney's done similar, you know, there've been a couple Imagineering books, and again, that was some of the information came from those, and I've talked to a couple Imagineers in my life, some info came from that, some Just a variety. Some things like, I don't know if you know the old Extinct Attractions videos they used to do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, like some, I think they mentioned some of the Imagineers mentioned some different things on some of those. Obviously, it's mostly about the Extinct Attractions, but it might have been something like I think Mineral King. Mineral King was in the Country Bear Jamboree one. I'm pretty sure they mentioned that. Obviously, just because it's such an obvious part of their history. I don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure they mentioned Mineral King in that. So, a lot of different sources. And again, there were like more that I could have included. But when I was doing it, I was kind of actually like trying to make sure I had I could cite everything. Like right. At least there was somewhere if someone like, I don't believe you, you're making this up. This is the stupidest thing. There was some really dumb, especially in Tomorrowland. I'm just like, they're like, this is the stupidest idea. What? You got to be joking, right? I've even had people who were like talking, like who've read it, who've told me like, what? That was a thing. I think one of my favorite one was the uranium hunting. Like they're going to let people just like these planners with, desert plants and give you a Geiger counter and look for uranium. And you're like,
that's really safe.
Time. You might get powers too. You bit by a scorpion, have like a scorpion man. Who knows?
Hey, parents, come on down. We're going to let your kids play in the uranium mine. You know what? When they leave, they're going to be all aglow.
Yeah. Different time.
That's absolutely. Like you said, it's, there is a lot of information out on the net. But what's great about your book, a large majority of it is together in one compendium. It's just all there.
Yeah, and I figure some of this stuff, like, I don't know if you can find it online. Like, it's hard, and even if you do, it takes a lot of time. You could just go to Wikipedia and they have, like, a list of attractions or things that, they have, like, unbuilt things. But it's not anywhere near as complete. I definitely did try to make as complete as I could. I know, again, the Theme Park Press has another similar book that kind of talks about some of the same things I wrote about, but a little more in-depth on each one. But this kind of covers a little bit about everything, though. I try to get as many different actual legit source, material that really, like you said, was, and maybe a few rumored ones, but at least let you know that they're rumors. So I just want to get at, like, anything I could find and, again, substantiate as best I could, and even then sometimes there's not much info, and it's like, oh, this is all we have.
Yeah, that's even like some of the Imagineers. I know Tony Baxter's done it at the Expo. He's done it at recently the Destination D event. He'll talk about things that never got built. Unfortunately, they never let you video or record them, but he's at least can point to a lot of things that were not built, and I think that starts then. The rumors or the suspicion about other things being built there.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, and this book is also great. Something you mentioned. There are other book. There's another book on Theme Park Press that is similar. But the thing is, this is on two levels. It's a great introductory book because you can tell you're passionate, and the way you write it is so great, especially for the newer Disney fan. But it also has so much really good information and hard to find information for someone like me. Yeah. That's why I got so excited about it. I was like, wow, there's a lot of things here. I thought I knew a lot. Apparently I was wrong. There's so much great content here that's, so it's kind of a twofer. There are other books and videos and things out there, but this is such a great resource to have.
Yeah. And that, I think sourcing, that's another thing, that I thought was with me that was good is there are certain books that are like either really expensive or certain things like the DVDs, like those Extinct Attractions ones. Like I have most of I think it's almost all of the Extinct Attractions DVDs. And those are harder to come by. If you want to have the whole set now, you can occasionally find one or two on eBay, but it's hard to do. And same thing, like I had some good sources were like the Art of Walt Disney World and the Art of Disneyland. Like those are like $100 now to buy them. Yeah. Or more. So it's like, even if you could, it's hard to get them. Those were some sources like I was able to get that I don't think some of the information from those books isn't really online. I'm able to bring information. Like, I have this information that you probably couldn't get, and I'm kind of giving it to you and packaging in a way you can, actually finally hear about it without buying, spending hundreds of dollars on these hard to find books.
That's true.
Right.
There are a lot of books that I would love to get. There's the Disneyland Nickel Tour. But
yeah, I almost bought that. I know that one, yeah.
But I'm not dropping
it's a little pricey.
Bucks. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit too high to... Yeah, maybe someday.
And then I never trust anybody's, opinion of their, what they're saying. It's in great condition. Yeah. What's your definition of great? Show me pictures of great condition.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing with eBay. If you're going to do it that way, I mean, Amazon, I wish they did. That would be a good way to do that for you.
If you're not looking at how the book is laid out, basically you separate all of the information from parks, lands, attractions, resorts, hotels, and my favorite category, miscellaneous. Tell us a little bit about maybe one of your favorite unbuilt park items.
Well, I mean, I have a favorite. In general, favorite parks that were unbuilt would be Westcott, because I think my favorite park. I mean, I grew up at Disneyland, so I think it would be between Disneyland, obviously, and Epcot would be my other one. I love science, and I love that kind of idea. So, and of course, having a park that would have been right next door to Disneyland that I could have gone to, that, as a park, that is definitely the one that I like the best. Other than maybe the Disney's America. I like history too, but I feel like we got that a lot, like a watered down version in California Adventure. The Paradise Pier kind of a version. We got Grizzly Rapids was like the Lewis and Clark, a lot of the parts of that in some way kind of made it to California Adventure. So I feel like we kind of got that in a not quite as good way as it could have been. But yeah, Westcott to me, and then, I mean, in terms of that, what my favorite part of Westcott could be would definitely be they were going to do a similar attraction, but a more updated version of Horizons. And I totally loved Horizons. And so I would have been so awesome to have an even more updated version that I could have, I rode Horizons maybe 10 times, one time going to Disney World that it was there. So, I would have been able to go on it so many more times. I love that whole retro futurism thing. So that would have been something I really would have loved at Westcott.
Yeah,
but Westcott in general would have been great.
Interesting. So let's go to a hotel item. What would, if you took one of the unbuilt things, Chris, what would you want them to build in the hotel category?
The hotels are kind of one of those boring ones to me because they're not the rides, but I don't know. I like the one that's I don't remember if I the name offhand, but it's the one that's in the shape of a Mickey Mouse.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a building that was, I'm thinking of it from the concept art where I know, and I think there was a name to it. And I think I mentioned it. I have the book. I should go through, maybe find it. Yeah. I mean, just for the look, I mean, like I said, it's, unless you count maybe Mineral King. I don't have the Mineral King Resort as part of, I think that's in Miscellaneous because it's more than just a single hotel. But that I like because they would have had the Country Bear Jamboree kind of before it was became a thing. It would have been the first time we would have seen that. So at least it would have had a attraction. It also is going to maybe at some points have a little train to it. So it would have not just been I go, I sleep. It would have been oh, there's more to do. And I mean, to be fair, there is, all the parks, there is more to do in the hotels than just go to sleep. They have really nice pools and, they have stuff to do. You could probably just go have a vacation at some of just the resort hotels, honestly. I think you'd hate, as a kid, you'd hate that. You'd be why don't we get to go? But you could, adults might appreciate oh yeah, let's just go to the spa. Don't, really do the rest. But yeah, so maybe that one, there aren't, I feel most of them, I feel a lot of those were in the Seven Seas Lagoon. It was oh, there's going to be a Persian one. There's 3 or 4 different things. It's okay, we get it. You were going to do the same thing. Is almost like Epcot. Oh, we're going to do a different country. And, if I feel it's not unique enough. They're kind of the ideas were let's rehash the same idea over and over. I almost don't mind that they didn't do it just because I feel they got a little more by not. I'm sure they made other hotels instead. And those hotels are different ideas, and we got more out of it than, okay, we're just doing the same idea in a bunch of different ways.
Right.
So,
and it's interesting because, you know, down here, you know, you're talking about the Asian hotel and the Venetian and the Persian that, you know, if they had built all of those near and around the Magic Kingdom, they would have had no other ideas to build when they built other parks. They would have been, and all the hotels would have been around one park and not any of the other parks. So it's a good thing they stopped when they stopped, you know, and then wound up building Epcot and then built, you know, hotels around that. So I don't know if that was by design or just, you know,
just happenstance.
Just happenstance, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely some of those attractions that I mentioned. You're like, you know what? As much as you kind of like, oh, I wish there was more and more. There's sometimes you're like, I'm glad they didn't do it after. You know, there was like, again, Tomorrowland's definitely one that I thought had a lot of things, like the fax machine. Like, wow, it's a I mean, it was a different time. It would have been, you know, but even then, would it have been that cool to see a fax machine even in 1960? I don't know. I don't think it would have been, but you're glad they didn't do it. You know, and some of the things they did do in Tomorrowland weren't that, you know, the bathroom of the future or whatever. Like, wow, that I don't think that lasted very long. Even in 1956 or whatever, they didn't think it was that great of an idea, obviously.
Yeah. Well, if you go back and look at, what was it, the Montecito house that they built?
Yeah, Monsanto. Yeah. House of the Future.
Half of the things that are in that house we never have seen today.
Although, to be fair, we do see a lot of those things we have seen. You know, they had the electric toothbrushes and, I don't know, stuff like that. So it did, you know, some of the things did make it. I mean, that's one I would like to have seen, actually. I've always like, oh, that sounds so cool. Again, I like that retro futurism. So,
yeah,
you know, for me, that was gone before I was alive, but I've definitely seen pictures and like, oh, seen the videos and like, oh, I wish that was, you know, I could have seen that.
One of the things that we talk about a lot in the show is the new restaurants and things that they do all around Disney, because we like to go and experience them. And in the book, there's two that fascinated me. The first one was the Astronomers Club. I thought that was an amazing concept. Would have loved that because I'm an astronomy buff. That would have been right up my alley. But the one that blows my mind is David Copperfield's Magic Underground.
Yeah.
What? That sounds like it would have been tremendous.
Yeah, and actually, Disney wasn't going to be the only one that I don't remember if I mentioned it in the book or not. I might not, just because it might not have focused on Disney, but I know they were going to do one in, like, Times Square, somewhere in New York like that, you know, some popular place. That. Oh, okay, yeah. And, yeah, I get it. I think, you know, one thing was, like, the money issues became a problem. But, yeah, I think it would be very hard to control. That's, you know, it's a bad environment for that kind of, you know, you're doing effects and, you know, magic, and if someone can see, you know, it would be hard to do. It's not, I think they'd have to have done it very differently. I mean, they have, like, LA has a Magic Castle, so there's, like, people go, they have something kind of like that, not on the same scale. I don't know, they maybe would have had to have, like, a stage, and, you know, it would have been very different than, I think they would have had to change a lot. But yeah, it would have been really cool. I would have definitely loved that had they had that.
Well, I mean, they've got some pretty amazing things now. I mean, even go back as far as like Journey to Imagination with Stitch. Sorry, I got Stitch on the brain.
Figment.
With Figment disappearing, and then even like with the new story time with Belle, where the magic wall appears and you walk through it. I mean, the technology's finally caught up, I think, to where maybe not all, but some of these ideas could have been, if, you know, Copperfield was still as relevant as he was back in the day. But yeah, I just thought it was amazing just to hear how even in the restaurant world, they were really coming up with incredible ideas.
And you know, I mean, like the restaurants, you know, that have, for Disney, if it's a Disney direct, you know, that wasn't going to be, it was kind of going to be like one of those other, you know, non-Disney owned property, like restaurants like Rainforest Cafe or something. So that was part of it. It wasn't, Disney itself was just kind of leasing it. It was going to be, you know, so that could have been the difference. But Disney themselves have done a lot of things that didn't make it, but then in some way, you know, like the Confucius restaurant helped lead to, you know, the animatronics, you know, the same like the Tiki Bird restaurant. In some ways, we still have it. Every time I go to the Tiki Room, I'm eating a Dole Whip float. Like, that's my, go get my Dole Whip. Yeah, I just like sit there, eat my Dole Whip, and honestly, I leave like typically before the show's done. I don't know if you can do that in Florida, but I know in California, you just can leave anytime you want.
It is frowned upon.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I try to be quiet. I tend to go in the back and towards the exit. Like, I purposely sit myself to the exit, you know, so I don't interrupt anyone for, I mean, to me, I've seen things so many times, like, okay, I might stay if it's close to like the song's gonna go, you know, but typically I'm like, I'm just gonna eat my, plus you can get the faster line, you know, the back line. People might not know they have the front line when you're going through the Adventureland sign, and on the other side in the waiting area for the Tiki Room, there's the other faster typically line to get your Dole Whip. So it's like, I get my Dole Whip fast, and then I'll time it. I'll be like, how long till the next show? Okay, I have time to get the Tiki, you know, the Dole Whip. I'll go. But so, yeah, you can eat there, and it's the same thing. And they oddly still kind of have that in, you know, again, Disney has the Rainforest Cafe, which is kind of similar, you know. Just somebody else did it. And again, much later. You know, Disney was kind of ahead of its time on that.
What would be, Chris, one thing, if you had one thing that you say, all right, this has to come back, or it has to be built, what would be the one thing you would want to see them build?
In terms of rides, I mean, like, because I don't know about thing to come back, but like with the book and stuff, the one, you know, I know individual ride, I think was the maybe probably the coolest. And there were things that were kind of more for me that I like as a favorite, like Tron I like, or Black Hole, so I'd like to see those. But I think that the most interesting, because it would have been so difficult to do, and that's what really makes me like it, is the Herbie ride. And there were things that they were suggesting that they tried in a way, and they couldn't even do it. Like the rocket rods. The Herbie was going to kind of like do this little jumpish thing. And, you know, the rocket rods, you know, I don't think I think it was maybe a couple months that they ever actually revved up and kind of did a wheelie. Doing this in 1960 when they couldn't really do it in 1990 very well. Right. And that was not at all the hardest. I think it would be, to this day, difficult to do some of the things that they wanted to do for Herbie, like breaking the vehicle in half and then coming back together. Wow. I mean, and they have interesting concept art where they break it different ways, whether it's like front and back. That seems more doable than like side to side, because you're thinking, are they going to have something splitting? What do I fall out of the car? Like, how do you keep people, you know? So I think that's probably why they switched and did it. You know, again, I've seen concept art where the car breaks in half both ways, you know, either long or, you know, in the front or on the side, by the sides, you know, and that's, again, that's not even, there's just so many little things that they were going to do that you're like, that would be, I feel even now technologically difficult to do. And it was also supposed to take a lot of space. So you're like, oh, big and space. Okay, let's do that. So that as an individual ride. And again, I do like Herbie. I don't know if it was like you have the choice of a black, you know, I mentioned like Black Cauldron. We don't know much about the ride, so it might have been really dumb if they would have done it. Right. But I like Black Cauldron. I might be like, I'd rather have a Black Cauldron if I knew nothing else. If I said this property versus this property, you get an attraction. Which do you want? You know, I would say give me Black Cauldron, or give me, and like DuckTales was going to be one they were going to have. As a kid, I loved that. I would have loved that. So I'd be like, DuckTales over Herbie. But just for what, if you actually tell me what it is, oh, yeah, the Herbie ride definitely sounds so, you know, technologically superior to anything. I want to see this happen. I want to see you at least try. And I think Disney's the people who, if anyone could get that done and do some of the effects and some of the things they were going to do with that, they're the ones who could do it. So I'd like let the Imagineers run wild with it. Try to do that.
There was always the rumor down here of a Monsters Inc. ride, you know, the alleged, you know, door kind of roller coaster.
The coaster.
Yeah. I still would love to see them build that.
I think I read about it, but I didn't know if there was enough info on it, maybe.
Yeah, there's not. There's not.
Okay, so that was probably, I think I knew that one, and I just didn't feel like it was substantiated enough, but I do remember about that.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd love to see them build. John, is there something you want to see them build that you've heard, you know, unbuilt?
Oh my gosh, off the top of my head, I mean, everything in the book. No, I really like the idea of Thunder Mesa, bringing Thunder Mesa from, what they have over at Disneyland Paris and the idea that they originally had for it. I like that idea. That and the astronomy restaurant, that would have been, that's why I mentioned it, because that would have been the one that I wanted.
And they could have done that recently at Planet Hollywood, the observatory.
Yeah. Well, I could see that maybe doing something to connect to like the Explorers Club or something. They try to, have their whole history and try to keep, like they try to bring in the Explorers Club in a lot of like Mystic Manor has some stuff related to it. And, Pleasure Island had so I could see it being related to that. Oh, it's an Explorers Club observatory thing. Right. I see at least there's a connection and, maybe.
That would have been great. Hey, one last thing we wanted to ask you before we called it a night. Tell us about your Disneyana collectibles.
Oh, yeah. I have lots of them. And that's, I don't know, did it mention, I kind of do that for a living a little bit.
In your bio.
I'm kind of going away from it. I'm kind of going on a long round-the-world trip, so I'm kind of cutting down. But I collect all kinds of things. What I do sell-wise, mostly I kind of found a niche of Disney pins, but not just Disney pins. I do like Japanese Disney pins. That's become my niche, is the Japanese stuff. So I do a lot of Japanese. For that matter, because of that, I have a lot of Japanese stuff in general. In fact, one that I like is, when I was a kid, I loved the Sword in the Stone ceremony, and I always wanted to do it, but somehow I never got picked all the times I was at the park. But I don't know if you ever heard about, they used to, Japan, they had a similar kind of thing. They had this attraction, the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour, and they would pick a kid at the end of it to, like, kill the Horn King. You got to just, like, hold up a sword and some little, pyrotechnic-ish, I don't know, effects or whatever. He kills the Horn King, and then they give him a little medal. And I've actually had multiple ones because I've sold them, but I still have one left. So I like that one because I'm like, I never got the Sword in the Stone one, but this is kind of like that. So, hey, it's as close as I've gotten. Because the Sword in the Stone one, I have seen the medal come up online every now and then, but they're expensive and they rarely come up online anyway, even if they do. It doesn't happen often. So I like that, except it's really small. Because it's for kids, and I never, I can barely fit it over my head. I have a lot of different kinds of books. I mean, for my personal collection, I have all kinds of, I'm definitely a big bibliophile in general, and so I like Disney, so books, put the two together. Right. I have all kinds of the guidebooks. I like the guidebooks. I think I have some of the very first, like I have ones from the 1950s. And those are other, examples. I got a lot of concept art. Those would show like coming attractions. So that was, again, another, you might not have been able to get those sources, but I do have those sources. It's kind of especially having a business doing it, it's kind of a bad thing because you're like, oh, I got this whole, especially if I'll buy like big lots of stuff sometimes. Or I like to do that. Typically, you get better deals when you buy huge lots and, can break it up. Sometimes you'll be like, this one item is worth this whole lot altogether, Right. Especially things like pins. You might get like one rare pin and you're like, oh, I know that pin's worth like $100 and I'm paying like $25 for like all these other pins, whatever. That's a good deal. You'll be like, well, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep, like it's a little bit bad. I've been branching out. I've been actually doing a lot of, for my eBay stuff, more Japanese Pokemon, and I don't know it as well, but I'm not tempted to keep it. With my own business of selling, Disneyana, I kind of want to keep everything. Yeah.
Do you buy stuff from Phil Sears? Do you know who Phil Sears is? Sounds
familiar, but
he's this guy that's been curating Disney stuff. Much like I think the same thing you've been doing. He also worked with Diane Disney. There's a lot of stuff from his collection in the Family Museum. But go check him out, philsears.com. He's got a lot of Disneyana collectible. A lot of it is kind of on the high-end stuff. He sold stuff like checks with Walt Disney's signature on it. It's a lot of stuff is out of a lot of people's league.
Yeah. I'm sure,
Yeah, but he does let people buy things on, installment plan. So even if you see something you like and you're like, well, You can buy it on PayPal with, the installment plan, and then it's only $30 a month, so or $40 a month or whatever. Interesting. Yeah, so what's the one of the favorite things you have in your collection you could never part with?
I don't know. I feel like, especially part of the thing I love about it is, because I'll get stuff and it's kind of like a treasure hunt, So I don't know if there's anything. Especially because I tell people I collect collections. There's so many, like I collect coins, I collect books. Yeah, it's hard to say like any one thing that I like the best. I don't know. I really, can't. I think sometimes it'll be like the newest thing will be the cool thing. I'll be like, oh, this is so cool. And then, after you've had it a while, it's not so cool. So that's the other thing. I feel like, I don't know if there's something that has such value to me is if I had something that, like, kind of because I've always been around Disney, so I don't want to say, oh, this was my first mouse ears. Okay, that might be the one thing. My first pair of mouse ears, maybe.
Oh, there you go.
They're not worth much, and they don't even have a name I like. They say Twofer on the back. My sister, that was her nickname for me, and I hated it. But she was like, I will get you these mouse ears, but I have to put Twofer on them. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'd rather have a pair of mouse ears than no mouse ears. I'd rather have it say Twofer than none at all. So I have a pair of mouse ears because that's one of the things. I have like a mouse ear collection.
Wow.
I have like all kinds of mouse ears. Like I said, I have different things. I have like the pressed penny collection. I have this, but I think one of my favorite parts of the collection is the things of different kinds of Disneyana collections in the collection of Disneyana would be mouse ears. Mm-hmm. So, and that is something that I totally remember. I remember as a little kid, my sister taking me down. I think actually we got it at the Disneyland Hotel and not Disneyland, the park itself.
Right.
I think we went, they used to have this like show there, this water show. So I think we went down to see the kind of like the early Fantasmic, but it was at the Disneyland Hotel and it was free. So we saw that. And then we went to the store, which is now gone. It's over by where the monorail now is, and she bought me a pair, and that was the deal. So I remember that. So I think that has like the most sentimental value of any of my Disney collections, and it's it's part of it's the main piece of one of my favorite parts of my collection. So I'd probably say that one.
All right, that's good. Good start. All right, so tell everybody where they can get this great book, Chris.
They can get it Amazon right now. I think you can get it through themeparkpress.com too. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure they have links from there. And I believe theoretically you can actually go to a bookstore if you can actually find one of those and you can actually request it. I believe because, as an ISBN and all that, I think it's doable. But yeah, the main source of it is Amazon though.
And it's the Disney UnBuilt, a pocket guide to the Disney Imagineering Graveyard. So that's the full title there. But I think Disney UnBuilt will probably get it.
We'll find it. Yeah.
Yep. And if people want to find you on the internet or get in touch with you, how would they do that, Chris?
I really don't have much of an internet presence.
All right.
I should have planned ahead more. Like I said, if you're interested, I don't have much going on eBay. I do have some stuff. I think that I think I only have about 15 things right now because, like I said, I'm cutting down. C.W.I.E. I think is the one that I have Disney stuff. I know I got some, like, you could search something maybe that I have right now, but I don't know. People might not listen to this now. I don't know. Maybe I could give my email. I don't know if I want to.
You don't want to do that. No.
Okay.
If you have questions, contact us. We'll send them to Chris.
Yeah, that's fine. I know. I probably should start thinking about that, now be more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm what they call intergenerational. I'm in between the millennial and the Generation X, but I think having older siblings, I side more Generation X. So I'm kind of like, is it real? I'm not quite as digital minded as some of my younger peers.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I think that's, I was in China and I couldn't for a couple of years. I lived and worked there and it was like, oh, no, I won't be able to use Facebook. And I'm like, wait, I don't really use it anyway, do I? So, yeah, I'm like, who cares?
All right. Well, want to thank you, Chris, for coming on the show. It's a very interesting book. If you really like Disney history and you want to see what kind of didn't make it to the parks quite yet or, maybe it's a book of the future. Maybe we're going to see all these things in the future. Don't know. But you have to check it out. It's called Disney UnBuilt. Go check them out. Theme Park Press and Amazon. And Chris, once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yep. And we'll see you in the parks.
The Disney Parks Podcast is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company. All Disney parks, attractions, lands, shows, event names, etc. are registered trademarks of the Walt Disney Company.
Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees